And next video is epic, epic, epic. It's a PD on its own. It's 1 hour 30 minutes, so it's long. So I'm going to suggest to you that before you sit down and start doing your PD, let me tell you the details quickly. So this PD is about the future of work and implications for school, leadership, teaching, and learning. And it was facilitated by Mr. Stanley Ayerson. Mr. Stanley Ayerson, he's in the administration, and he focuses all what he does on a daily basis, looking at the standards, the school standards, the accreditation, and student activities at Ghana International School. This is fascinating one. It's very exciting. I had a great time editing it. I had a great time shooting it. I've learned so much from it, and I know you're gonna do the same. I know you're gonna learn and you're gonna experience the same thing. So grab your water bottle, grab your coffee if you need some coffee, grab and sit down and have a great fun. But before you do that, before you grab all that you need, please, I need you guys look at that red button below. It says subscribe. Please do that, guys. Please do that. We spent 5 days going around shooting this, learning and editing and everything, and then three next days of editing. This was the longest editing that I've ever done, but I enjoyed it throughout. And please hit subscribe. Subscribe. That's the only way you can support us as we move and venture into doing what we do best, and we love doing it. Thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. Let me not waste any time. Let's go straight to it.
People learn virtually. We have now what we call the MOOCs, right? Where you can be in Ghana and then you can actually be a student of Stanford University or Harvard University by just signing up or subscribing to their online course. And you get the degree at your own pace, right? You have some level of independence, you have some level of flexibility. You can be working and attending Stanford University at the same time. Okay, so things are changing in terms of how the work environment is going to look like. The question then is, we are training our students to be the future leaders. So if things are changing, what does the future look like in terms of work? Are we going to be training them, educating them to develop the same skill set, right, that we have? Will they be able to survive 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now? Possibly not, right? So if we do some sort of a reverse analysis to try and understand what work will look like in future, then we ask ourselves, what should we do now to be able to give a certain set of skills to our students so that when they become adults, they'll be transformational, right? They'll be socially responsible, they'll be able to thrive and make a difference in tomorrow's world. So when you said contemporary, I said, okay, let's look at it from that angle, some sort of reverse analysis, and see whether we'll be able to come up with something that Henry House will be interested in adopting going forward. So basically that's going to be the focus of my presentation today. Next slide.
Which one? The introduction?
Outline.
Alright.
Good. So already done my introduction. We'll have a plenary session, which is a short video on what major researchers have probably found out based on an analysis of trends of the kind of works that are, or professions that are coming up, right? Now you hear someone is a YouTuber, okay? And you ask yourself, what does it mean to be a YouTuber? It's all about having a YouTube channel, sitting in the comfort of your home. You don't even have to be in an office, right? And you can upload solid content, right? Which a certain group of individuals identify with, meets their needs in terms of information, likes, interest, right? And the more views you get, the more money you make. How much does that gentleman make a day? The guy who is, I think he makes about $1 million. He's a YouTuber.
The boxing guy? It's not moved into boxing. Jake Paul.
Okay.
And the brother, both of them are YouTubers. They made Logan Paul and Jake Paul. They make
YouTubers.
A lot of money.
And they're making a lot of money, right? Remember when, I loved football growing up. My dad sat me down and said, "You want to play football or do you want to go to school?" I knew the answer he wanted. Even though he acted as if he was giving me an option. I knew the answer he wanted. He said, "I'll go to school." For 10 years, I remember very well, I never touched football. Because that very evening, it was 8:25 p.m. on a Friday. That very evening, he said, I remember very well. If it's going to be school, then I don't want to see you on the field and I don't want to see you touch it. I was good. I could play. But back then, football was not an option. I'm sure now he'll be gnashing his teeth, right? He'll be like, "She, the way Stanley used to play back in the days, I'm sure by now, Charlie, he would have been remitting some pounds down to me." You get it? What other profession? We watched the video yesterday about the poetry. You know, when you have a child who wants to go into technical school or visual arts, back then, we wonder, why do you want to? It's people who are blockheaded that goes into such professions.
Stanley, this way, if I may interject, we can bring it to home. Our neighboring country, Emmanuela, Emmanuela from Nigeria, she just built a huge house. She's making, she's having, I don't think she's in junior high school.
Yeah.
You know her, Emmanuela.
Yeah. So now talent, passion, right, pays more. And the question is, how do we train and develop the kids to be able to take advantage of their passion, talent, and develop certain critical skills? Communicating effectively, being socially responsible, being confident and assertive. Back then, you dare not challenge an adult or probably have a conversation with an adult. When the adult says A, you don't say A. Right? Do you think, when you look at when you watch Emanuela's skits, she's always challenging an adult and asking certain silly questions, right? And then we laugh. That's now. Let me know. Can Emanuela do this in the 80s or in the 70s?
Okay. It's funky.
Body works. That's how I call it. I used to get the body works, right? Pop, 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 pop. If the belt probably he checks and there's no belt, his hand or if the cane is close by, or the firewood, right? Or the stick we use in preparing the bamboo. Maybe your mom is preparing bamboo, bring the ladle or bring something and then you are absent-minded for a second. She just takes it out. Yeah? So that was just by the way. So it's important that we identify as school administrators, as teachers, we identify the key skills that are making individuals make a difference today out there. Right? Yesterday, myself and my other colleagues were full of admiration for Beyonce, right? Considering the fact that she stammers, and we all appreciate the fact that when you are in front of a group, the pressure, the anxiety, and that does not go with stammering because it triggers it to even be, right? The reason why we're full of admiration is some people would hesitate to be the one to come and present on behalf of the group. That is one. Two, as she delivered, it got to a point, it feels like she was stuck. I would have just said, you know what, come and continue. And I'll go and sit down. She didn't do that. So you notice at some point, I stood up, I stood here, and then I was just nodding, and then I was doing this. Because I wouldn't have done that. Okay? She persevered. She's not moved by her shortcomings. Those are the kind of kids that we need to develop. What learning experiences what environment, what kind of culture should we create to be able to get the students to develop these skills? Basically, that's the conversation we're going to have. I'm not going to be the one to tell you exactly what to be done. We're going to discuss, right? And then we see how best, what solutions we arrive at. So watch that video. We'll do a summary of the skills that research has identified to be very critical for the future of work. And then we'll look at implications of these for school administration, as I mentioned. And then we'll do some school context appraisal. If I say school context appraisal, what I mean is we look at Henry House currently. Okay, we've identified the implications of those skills that we need to have our students develop for our school. Now, what are we doing now, which we think can help them develop those skills, or is helping them develop those skills? What more do we have to do? What are we doing now, which is possibly negating or does not support our quest to help them develop those skills? So we'll do that appraisal quickly, and it will help you kind of like, we call it environmental analysis or SWOT analysis, depending on how you want to describe it. There are so many 1,001 jargons or terminologies out there. Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll have a 2-point action plan. So as you've done the SWOT analysis, you've seen your strength, you've seen the opportunities, you've seen the weaknesses. Normally you have to put in place an action plan. Okay, these are the problems, these are the solutions, right? Who is responsible? Okay, by what time do you want to do what? The timelines. What resources would you need? So if you adopt that intentional, systematic approach, now you've analyzed and you've identified what you need to change, what you need to improve on. You put that into an action plan, and then it helps you work towards it. The popular saying, you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Right? So then we can use that action planning process, and then maybe it's something you guys can have on your record to work towards in the medium to long term as a pilot, and then we can do an overall or a thorough whole school review or evaluation, right, going forward, and see how best we can move Henry House. Now, the question that popped up, it said, would our children be ready? What did you observe? I mean, one after the other, anybody can start. What did you observe?
Activities and carry out.
What are some of the activities that you do?
Doing farming, watering systems done by robots. You can deliver message to somebody carried by what? A robot or
Technology
device, technology device to the person. And also buying things, shopping
Online. You don't have to be there in person. Obviously, you have to go to the market. It's a market day on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. What's the market day here in Togo?
Every 5 days.
Every
5 days.
5 days. Yeah. So market day. So everybody has to wait until market day. And then we all go to the market day. Right? So we all leave our homes and go to the market. So if the armed robber wants to actually do a good job, we would have a whole town to rob. Yeah? Okay? Madam, what did you observe?
I observed that the factor you winning and in the same there's a big farm and then I could see that the workers are doing works and what is coming from it was the robot was doing plowing and
Okay, so you also observe the robot. Good. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now we are doing online shopping. When you do it, I bought something from Accra. They have to say, oh, they are not going to the station. The lady called me and said, oh, I got the station, the last bus is gone. So she went back home. The following day she came, she called me. That was I was going to the station and it was raining. Then late evening she got to the station now, get the thing to the driver. The driver called me midnight that he arrived, so I can't come. The following day. But looking at this drone, so immediately I just send whatever
the request.
Then the drone bring the thing to me. So now we think we are doing online, but there is another level. And then looking at the construction industry. You go to site, building.
You didn't see any person on the ground.
No. You didn't see this supervisor.
Okay.
The supervisor and the foreman, you don't see the foreman there, but the work is done.
Okay. What did you observe?
just observe the machine or the plant doing the work.
Yeah. Weeding, and then I think it was a combined harvester. It will collect the rice by itself, separates the chaff from the food, right? And then puts it in a certain compartment and put the leaf somewhere else, right? Will our children be ready? And how does our children fit into this environment? What do you think? Because if our children are training to become steel benders, right? To become engineers, let's say building contractors, right? What else did we observe? We observe the building sites become farmers, okay? And this is what's happening. How do they think? What do we have to do as a school? I mean, for me, it's thought-provoking. I don't know if it is for you, because I don't know if you've actually thought about it from that perspective, in terms of what would work look like, and the children we are training now, would they be able to fit in? What it means is that children should be the ones putting together or developing these structures, designing the robots, finding ways to make work easy. Because for people, because we are all enjoying the comfort. You sit at home, you place an order, and then, okay, when we came in here, we stepped out to buy something. He was at home, and then he wanted to join us. And then he said he was going to come with an Uber. And I said, Boga, I don't know if Uber works here. There's no Uber here, right? So Uber is a ride-hailing app. It's an application on your phone. You go on there, and then you request for a car. So you'll be at home, then you request for the car. Now the driver will accept the request because he is also on the application. So you will see that someone has requested for a car. We have that in Accra. Now the application, when you put in the request, it has your location somehow embedded in it. So the driver will follow the map by virtue of the request that you send, and will drive directly to the front of your house. And then he will pick you up. And then take you, even if you don't know where you are going. The driver, by virtue of you enter where you want to go, and then take you there. Now the app will calculate the cost of the trip. It takes into account how long it takes, the distance, right? So how long it takes to get there. Maybe it takes 15 minutes. What was the distance? Maybe 15 kilometers. So you take that into consideration, and it has a unit cost per distance or per time, multiplies it, and then it will pop up on your phone to say pay the driver 10 cedis. And the driver will also receive a notification to say collect 10 cedis. So you pay the driver 10 cedis. The driver will click to say trip ended, and then you get off, you go to your destination.
And to say it again, the passenger is paid. If you don't pay, you say he didn't pay, then they blacklist you. When you
So you cannot use the app.
You are bad customer.
You can pay with cash, you can pay with Momo, or you can pay with a credit card, right?
Yes.
In Accra, we have what we call Uber Eats. Now we've even graduated from the Uber ride where you, the person, you ride, to where you put in a request and tell the Uber driver to go to a restaurant and buy you XYZ, or you order the meal, the restaurant gives it to an Okada or an Uber driver, and it gets delivered to you. You don't have to move. If our children are unable to develop an app that solves and makes life easy for people, develop machinery that makes life easy, because constantly we need to figure out what are we struggling to do. I believe that's what sells most. I don't know what you think. What are we struggling to do? What are we, and then how do we automate that, right? And that's where we make the money.
Let me just jump in there.
Please jump in.
My first born. I want to do robotics. I say, my friend, get out. Get out. When you finish the mechatronics, you will see what you're going to do next. So what we are doing now is just telling you that the boy, he is actually on point. Yeah. Because I introduced him to the mechatronics. I said, are you okay with it? He said, yes, I'm okay. And he's really. So he came back and I said, Daddy, I want to do mechatronics. He said, oh, get out. Not mechatronics. So he's with robotics. So with this video and what you are saying, he's on point. Yeah.
He's on track.
He's on track. Yeah.
Okay.
He's on track. Now, after the mechatronics, he can go do masters, whatever, in the work. Yeah.
And we all don't have to be developing robots, right? Because it's like, and sometimes I drive around Accra and I see so many people when they're building their houses, everybody builds some sort of like a store, right, in front of it for rentals. So I asked you this question: if we all build our houses and we all build stores in front of it, right? Now who's going to rent whose store? So whilst people are building stores, I would say, okay, what would they need in the stores? What do they want to sell in the stores? Or what would they need to put up the stores? That is what critical thinking. Right? Constantly critically analyzing and evaluating the environment in which you find yourself and say, slightest opportunity, you may open for some money. Looking at the video, that's what I see. I mean, you have given your son's example. What other example then comes to mind from your end? Having watched the construction site, machines, there was a driverless car.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know if you saw that.
Yeah, okay.
The doctor was on his device, and then the patient was in another country, and he was performing an operation controlling the machine.
Okay,
I think something similar happened at Kolebu. But then instead of operating the robot, it was actually kind of like
on live
Zoom
with another doctor on site telling the person
what to do,
where to cut, and all those things.
Yeah.
That's another strategy. So I also watched a video, and thanks for bringing this up. You know how when you go to the hospital and they need to check your veins and probably insert something in there, right? They tie this part of your arm, right? And then they ask you to make a fist just for your veins to pop up, okay? And then they stick a string in there, right? And they pull out your blood or insert the drip or whatever. Okay. There's this tool that I saw not long ago, I think about a month or two ago. It's like a lighting system. You're the science person here, so you would appreciate. So the person puts his arm down, they turn on the light on the arm. Do you know what happens? The light automatically kind of like takes off your flesh. It doesn't take off your flesh in real life, but your flesh becomes not visible, it becomes transparent. So your veins and the bones in your body is what pops up. And then the person just took the syringe, stick it in there, did whatever it had to do, took it off, turned off the light and turned it.
Instead of the put it in the
And then sometimes they put it at the wrong spot. And you know how some people get injected and then they become paralyzed, right? Because they injected the wrong parts or whatever, you didn't go through the right veins or whatever. You think when you have that, you will be inserting the medication into the wrong part of the body. So it doesn't only make life easy, it brings about what efficiency, and it brings about what effectiveness. And efficiency is doing the right thing with less resources, right? And then effectiveness is doing things right? So you are effective. So now you don't end up paralyzing people by virtue of doing the thing wrongly. And then apart from that, it's efficient because previously it might take more than a minute or 2 or 5 to be able to go through that process, isn't it? But now, what happens? Within a split second, you're done and you're gone. A doctor would then have to, if he was the only expert, he would have to travel from the country of origin to wherever he had to go and operate the patient on, isn't it? Yeah. And how long does it take to travel? On the average, flying to America is 12 hours, right? That is a direct flight. If you're going to do transiting, you might end up doing close to 24 hours. Okay, you get there, you are tired, and you are jet lagged because when you were leaving Ghana, it was 10 p.m. Ideally, you should be sleeping. You didn't sleep because you were on board. I mean, some people sleep on air. The kind of sleep I'll have in the air is not the kind of sleep I'll have on my bed. Right? So you move, you get there, and it's morning when you get there because the time zones are different. And you know how, for some reason, I don't know how that works. Maybe you, the science teacher, should tell us. How come when even though you haven't had sleep throughout the night in one country, you get to a different country, it's day, and automatically you feel like to move on?
Our brains have an internal clock. Okay. And it also has a light sensor.
Okay.
So when the sunlight is up, your brain is receiving information that, young man, you should be awake. Oh. So even when you're tired, more often than not, that brain command will keep you awake. And that's why those of us who like using our phones in the night, we can't sleep. Because the light coming out of your phone, it's something called blue light. It's the light, that's the sun, it's the same type of spectrum in the sunlight that keeps you awake. So whenever you go to, doctor, I can't sleep. And they'll ask you, do you use your phone in the night? Or most of it, you're on WhatsApp, you say yes. They'll tell you when it's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, put your phone off. and turn off all the lights in your room, and you fall asleep.
So this doctor will get there, his tired. We will do one operation and then we'll have to fly back. Now he can sit at home, control whatever tool or machine. He can complete 6 surgeries in a day without moving. And what does that mean? What would that mean?
It's being efficient.
And the efficient, forget the efficient.
More money.
No money.
The cash.
Yeah.
You are not going to fly to buy air ticket. And the people are not going to be paying for your air ticket. You have to pay for air ticket and what have you, accommodation, hotel accommodation. So $10,000 is okay. They transfer it to you. Now you don't have to go to the bank take a suitcase and go and collect the money. They just sit behind their computer, type some things, and then you will get alert on your phone.
Are you paying Bitcoin?
Okay? So these we call what? They need to have 21st century skills. This time not learning, but skills that would help them what? Survive. Okay? There's this historian. He's actually a best-selling author. And then in his book, he actually talks about how the art of reinvention. So you notice that some of the things that are happening right now are just remodeling of how we used to do things, right? Redesigning, right? Okay, of how we used to do things in a manner that makes it more efficient, less time consuming, and then people identify with it, and then people do what? They pay for it. Momo is a typical example. First, how do our uncles and aunties in Accra, how do they send us money? And then sometimes the driver, and then what happens to the money sometimes?
Sometimes you don't get the full money.
You'll be chasing the driver.
Yes.
Right? So if the driver, they send maybe 200 cedis to you every week, and from experience, either the driver will bring you 150, or he will not even bring the money for 1 month. Then you'll be chasing him, then he'll come and give you 50, then he'll give you another 50, and he'll give you another 50. Now, Momo says, your uncle should just send you the 200 through Momo. They will charge you 1 cedi. Tell me which one do you prefer? Because 1 cedi, you prefer to lose 1 cedi
Losing all the money.
than losing all the money. Exactly.
I'm sorry, sir. I
Okay.
just can't stand it.
They're losing all the money. So it's the same way of life. You analyze it. You say, how can I make this more seamless, less stressful, more effective, efficient? Technology, system. Do I come up with a structure? If it's a company, corporation, do I come up with a policy? Do I come up with a manual to help people? Those kind of inquisitive, curious, right, inquiry mindset. So what skills do you see on there? Yeah?
Creativity,
Mm-hmm.
leadership, and social influence.
Mm-hmm.
Technology use,
Mm-hmm.
technology design,
Mm-hmm.
resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. Resourcing, problem solving, and ideation.
Ideation. Yeah? Mm-hmm. The discussions we've had so far, your child's experience, the transfer of money, the doctor, how does it fit in? So maybe for the transfer of money, which of the skills do you see in there that you think led to?
Analytical thinking.
Okay, that's one for me. Please don't give me all. One, someone else. Complex problem solving. It's complex. What makes it complex? Because there was a problem, right? And the problem is people lose their money. Okay? It wasn't really achieving the purpose for which we were using the bus transfer and using people. Maybe someone else is coming to the village, say, oh, give this to my mother, give this to my... It was a problem, so then they found a solution. Okay? Technology use. Okay?
Control.
Okay? Mommy,
She can't see.
she can't see. Ah, the glasses. No problem. You get it. You get it now. Okay. So how do we get?
Not all. This one yours.
Let me just do it. I took my second born. Rabi took me. His boss has changed this. So we went, he said we should pay, I paid everything. So the doctor will be too soon. So they called us in and there was no doctor, it was a giant screen. Then the doctor was speaking to us. So I told the nurse that, look, I've regretted paying them. I told her, if I knew that I'm not going to meet the doctor, I wouldn't have brought my boy here. So he said, you relax. Okay. So did everything into the device, there's a scan the part of the skin, blah, blah, blah. Then the other question, asking questions, he answered the questions, and then he recommended the drugs. He gave us the drugs and it worked. So I think because of ignorance.
Now you regret me.
I don't know, because of ignorance, I regretted being this.
But after the fact.
After everything, I met the lady, I said, Madam, everything worked well.
Okay. And I'm sure there are so many other people like you,
Yeah.
right, who had that impression, who had that thought pattern, but then changed their mind afterwards. I like the fact that you are able to relate to some of these examples, right? So now let's do a quick brainstorming session. We'll pair. So both of you. You take a sheet in there. Now, with what we've discussed, the kind of skills that is required to be able to do the kind of work that we've seen, which is going to be in the future. Now, these skill sets are actually skill sets that have been developed by the World Economic Forum. And World Economic Forum is basically like a forum or a group, an association or a forum where people, businesses, governments needs to have conversations, right, about economic conditions, business strategies, and what have you. So it's an annual conference, but then we have an organization that runs that particular conference annually. And they, from experience and over the years, they've continued to analyze the trends in the business environment, right, or in various economies. And they are saying that in the next 10, 15 to 20 years, if one person does not have this list of skills, the person will struggle to survive. PwC, I don't know if any of you have heard about them. PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's an auditing firm, internationally known, right? We had a session with them, and trust me, the skill sets that they are telling us that they need, and they also kind of like try to forecast what would happen in the next 10 to. So people are actually ahead of us. What we are doing right now, trying to forecast what will happen, and then know what to do now to be prepared for what will happen. All the blue chip companies, we call them blue chip companies, international companies who make millions of dollars, that is what they do. And that is why they are always ahead of us. Because when we realize that, oh, this is the new trend, it's like pure water business. This person sets up pure water business, he's making money. You see the next person sets up pure water business, then another person, then it collapses. Then it comes to, how do you go? Pagia. One person buys Pagia, buys another Pagia, then he's making money. By the time you realize the whole street is filled with Pagia. Right? So we are very reactive. They are very proactive. So constantly they are asking what happens in 10 years, what happens in 15 years, what happens in 20 years. So they start preparing. So by the time the thing happens in 10, 15 years, they are ready for that time. Now we are in the year, we are now preparing. You will not finish preparing, then there is the next. So looking at this, what do you think is the implication for you as a school? I mean, as a headmaster, assistant headmaster, with the kind of children training, teaching and learning you're doing, what are the implications? Both of you. Maybe 3 pointers, 4 pointers. What do you think are the implications? You write it on there. Have a quick discussion. You have 5 minutes to be now, maybe 10 minutes to discuss. have an example from the school where you realize that you had some feed defaulters and you quickly identify them to be farmers producing certain kinds of produce which you use in preparing your meals, right? And then quickly you strategized and said, instead of going to the market to go and buy, right? You buy the produce of your parents, and then the money that you would have paid to them, they can use that to defray the cost of the fees. Strategic thinking. Problem solving. So you are able to do it. How do you make sure that you create an environment that's actually you? Think on their feet. Start testing and then we did another crying. Crying doesn't solve the problem. Things are hard. And there's no job. Graduate Unemployed Association of Ghana. So I'll start off with you. What are some of the things that implications for the school, as you mentioned?
Future planning.
Sorry. Okay. Future planning. Sorry if you cannot see my handwriting. Me, I have hand diarrhea. I don't have mouth diarrhea. I have hand diarrhea.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
So making the environment a creative environment.
Making it a creative environment. Okay. I'll write it. Creative school environment. So creativity becomes a way of life, right, in the school. So invariably, the children will automatically develop that creativity mindset because that's what they're used to. Okay?
Researching for new information.
Okay. Research for new information. So this will feed into this. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. What else? I thought you were reading what you have. It looks like you are analyzing and seeding.
Making the environment a research-based center.
Okay, so let me make that another point. Research driven or based center. So in as much as we want it to be a creative school environment, you also think that it should be research driven or research based. That should also be a culture in the school. Okay, all right. You're done?
Yeah.
Yes, good too.
We are also seeing that, first of all, leadership, we need to unlearn and then relearn as leadership first.
Amen.
Because without this,
And then relearn.
change. Yeah.
So you unlearn the things that are probably hindering you from being creative or in setting or creating the environment that supports or ensures that students develop these skills, right? And then also relearn new ways of delivery to be able to create a supportive and an engaging environment that empowers them to develop the skills that we're talking about. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. So, for example, when I started the entrepreneurship education, for instance,
Yeah.
and then I made the written teacher that any work we have to do in the school, the children should be involved. So there were some teachers who say that it's a child labor. So we need to really unlearn these things. Basically, the teacher said child labor. So he made some of the children to believe that what we are doing is what? Child labor. That is their mindset. That's why we tell them we need to unlearn.
The last time when you were telling them about it,
Yeah.
one of my colleagues, I don't know if it's you or both of you, they actually said, someone, and this is what they said, someone will say, this is child labor.
Exactly.
This is actually
Exactly.
experiential, hands-on learning.
Industrial intention.
Yeah.
Industrial intention. Industrial intention.
Yeah. The teacher actually said child labor. That's the science guy.
Is the teacher there?
No, he's not. He's not.
Oh,
He said he actually said I am putting too much pressure on the staff, so he left because I'm putting pressure on them to work hard. He was the one who said it's child labor, and he made some of the children to believe that what they are doing is child labor. So as a leadership, if you don't unlearn certain things that we already have, we can't. Yeah, we can.
You see, I mean, to some extent, from a legal point of view, right? If you take it out of context, let's say this was not a school, okay? The child rights activist, and I'm assuming that person is a child rights activist, would say it's child labor, okay? However, immediately you situate it in a school environment. And the school environment is where children do what? They learn skills. Okay? And as a school, and that is what we call what? In local parenting,
Yes.
we take up the role of a parent. And the kids are with us. Hence, and the parents actually pay us to be able to help them develop skills, values, attributes, which they do not have the time, the ability, the disposition to be able to. So far as we are able to justify beyond reasonable doubt that the necessary checks and balances, support mechanisms, safety measures are in place. What is child labor about? You, the teacher, in actual fact, it saves you the stress of getting another skilled personnel to help you do this job, and you finish it off in 30 minutes. If you're doing it with kids, hey, be careful. Don't carry this, hold it this way, do it that way. Something that will take you 30 minutes, it will take you a whole day or even 2 days to be able to complete. So it's actually the school stressing or the adult labor and not the child labor.
And someone called. He said, I want to bring my daughter. The reason why I'm bringing my daughter was I saw something that they said entrepreneurship skills. I used to do it. That's what the question was asked. He said, you found out that the daughter loves to draw.
So that's a unique selling point
so
for you.
They asked me, are we still doing it?
If you're not still doing it, they are not coming.
Are we still doing it? He said, yes, we are doing it. I'm the one teaching. So okay, fine. I will bring my daughter. That is it. So if you don't unlearn.
So you need to unlearn and relearn.
Exactly.
Who are those unlearning and relearning? Leadership.
Leadership first.
And then?
Yeah. If leadership don't do that, we cannot effect it. Because if we do that,
so you will then drive the change.
Exactly. We have to drive the change. Yeah.
And the change, where are you driving it? Is it only the staff?
The staff and the parents and the children as well. Because we need to involve everyone. Yeah.
Next one.
Alright, we need to include the needed skills in our curriculum. The skills that we think these children will need.
So curriculum review.
Yes, curriculum review.
Okay. To support these skills, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have more for us?
One more.
Okay.
We need to identify the skills that the children have now.
Okay.
We need to study the children, see the skills they have now, and then we support them.
Prior knowledge, ability, right? And audit.
Yeah.
Okay. Audit of prior knowledge, abilities, and skills.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. Should I come and sit down so that you will come and complete the presentation? Because you're sorted. I also have to be able to help or support students. And these are all spot on anyways. As I go through my list, you will find them in there. And whatever list I'm giving is not conclusive. That's not all that needs to be done. It's just a few that I'm highlighting. Okay? Now, to be able to create such an environment, there needs to be deeper and experiential learning. Does that ring a bell? What bell does it ring? What bell does it ring? Deeper and experiential learning. Give an example.
Hands-on. Yeah.
We had the conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
And you know the interesting thing? When I saw his presentation, right? And I think for some reason, all of them they have traits or links to experiential learning. Some way, somehow, right? Teaching science, experiential learning. Teaching ICT, experiential learning. Classroom management, experiential learning. To get the children to be focused, not distracted, right? And be engaged, you need to give them hands-on stuff that will keep them busy. That is what we talked about. To teach science in a manner that will get the students to understand experiential learning. To teach ICT in a manner that will help them develop the IT skills we're looking at, experiential learning. To be able to get students to develop, sometimes people call it the soft skills, but to develop these 21st century learning skills, experiential learning. So they are used to a lifestyle or a habit of constantly doing things by themselves, being independent, getting involved, getting engaged. So it's a part of life, it's not stressful. They move out of school, they go to the welder, right? And they see the welder do things, mold, cut, they see the tools and all those things. Immediately, it begins to trigger, and human beings, we have some sort of an imaginative mindset. We begin to imagine, right? Okay, so what else can be done? Right? If I want to do something different from the sliding windows that they are doing, or something different from the, what do you call, the regular proofs, right? What else can I do with it? And all those things. So you get them to be involved, to go to the site, experience real life situations of whatever you're teaching them. The welders, sometimes you go to a company, right? We have the industrial attachment where you finish, when you're in university, by level 200, they tell you to go and get a letter from a company. You go there, some of the theories that you learned in the classroom, you go and attachment. You go there for 2 months. People are doing attachments from childhood.
And it's not child labor.
And you are doing 2 months. And you want to be able to bumper with the big boys. Yeah? And experiential learning, we all appreciate the fact that I don't have to dwell on that. It leads to deeper understanding and deeper learning.
There's a boy in front of the now, Calvin. When he came, we went to do painting. He said, let me do that. Have you done it? He said, no. And have you been at the place where he said, no. I gave him the roller. He was just doing the thing perfectly. He was doing everything well. What are you going to paint? Say, I'm going to paint this. He will be asking me, say, I'm going to paint this place. He has developed that. He knew how to paint without anybody telling him, this is how you handle the roller.
He just needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
Give him the opportunity. And then he will deliver.
Exactly.
So if we don't provide that experiential learning opportunity, we stifle creativity, we stifle imaginative thinking, we stifle critical thinking. What's the next point that I have there?
Risk thinking, learning environments. Okay.
How different is that from unlearn and relearn? How do we what kind of learning environment should we design? Okay? Should it be, sometimes, even a sitting arrangement in the classroom can influence your delivery. I stand to be corrected. True or false?
I mentioned that in but you're not here.
Yeah, I stepped out.
You stepped out. And it has to be dynamic. It cannot be, depending on the nature of the activity.
And you don't always have to be in the classroom space, within the 4 corners. I see schools in the near future, and I'm going to come to you pretty soon. Schools in the future not focusing on infrastructure.
Yeah.
I see schools taking place in a community kind of design, right? So you have a clinic, you have a house where you have a kitchen, and then you have some sort of a bus station, you have a soccer field, you have like a company design setup, right? I see schools being designed like that. So you wake up, you do your chores, you move, you go there, move from there, you go to the classroom, you go to the office, right? You go to the factory, okay? You go to the field to probably go and exercise or probably do experiments and stuff. I see schools like that. Because now, there are certain things you don't need to be in class. You step out, you are doing saw. Or you are doing erosion. It's also saw, right? All you have to do is to step out here. You don't need to have a projector to show a picture or a video of rain with soil erosion happening. Soil erosion is just a line environment. So rethinking our learning environment, rethinking our learning design. Alice.
For example, for me, science, I like being in the classroom. So once in a while, you can have the whole classroom in the garden. You have a sitting area with trees and benches. I said, okay, today we are going outside. Just pick your book, one pencil, go and sit outside. Most of the learning will be done, especially when we are doing plants. Especially when we are doing plants. Because the plants are all around. There's no point, like you're saying,
Projecting
the plants.
Or breaking the plants to come and put on the table.
Exactly. They need to feel it, they need to touch it, they need to see it.
Or you can be in the forest and be doing plants. Yeah? What's the next point we have there?
Contemporary teaching and learning strategies.
To be able to have them begin to get bits and pieces or an interest in technology-driven stuff, right? We talked about it yesterday. You need to, because technology is one of the key skills. So you need to incorporate that. Coding, programming. I understand you can actually have like a program called something where you connect, I don't know how they do it, PG, I stand to be corrected. So you'll be sitting down, you hear a knock on your door, probably there's a camera and there's a screen, you see who is there. And if you want to open, you just press a knob, the door opens, the person comes in. And this is done by kids, not adults.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's something, it's actually a home solution. There's a house, I think that's
DIY, a do-it-yourself kind of thing.
Yes. You can do those programming. So you buy the items, maybe
And then
the camera, and the microphone,
and then the board or something,
program
Raspberry Pi or...
They have those solutions. You can program it yourself.
Yeah.
If someone presses your door, you can program it to use your voice and ask the person, who are you? The person will respond.
10-year-olds
If the person's name is in your system, and the person responds, and the system recognizes the name, it opens the door. The person walks in and you can instruct, okay, I'm in the bedroom, come to the bedroom, or I'm in the hall, come to the hall. It's something that is there for people to do.
10-year-olds.
Do it.
So we need to expose them. You know, you cannot think beyond what you've been exposed to. You know that, right? You limit your thinking to the environment in which you find yourself. That is why the elders say, show me your friend and I'll show you your friend. Yeah? And then they say, if you want to be able to break boundaries, right, you associate with people who are ahead of you. Because people who are either below you or at your level, you can only think and behave at that level. Or they will drag you to their level. And they say, well, if the madman, you're in the bathroom and the madman takes your clothes, you don't run after the madman because everybody will think that, yeah, because everything will be
a senior madman.
Right? So it's important that you expose them to technology-driven kind of learning. They fidget and play around with it, right? So that you begin to develop their interest, their love, and their ability or their skills as a result. What's next? Alice, next slide.
School leadership.
So next slide. So as school leaders, what should you do?
Create a supportive school climate. that promotes strong home-school partnership, relationships among staff, students, and families.
So you notice that the first 3 points are more classroom, teacher engagement kind of thing. Here we're talking about what the leaders, even though leaders can also do that, here what the leaders should be doing. Because if the school environment, the climate does not support, parents do not believe in it. You are coming to take my child to go and paint your house or build your building whilst you are collecting money from me. Lie. Do you get it? So that is why when you talk about the unlearn and learn, I asked who is unlearning and who is relearning. And then I appreciate the fact that you actually said leadership, because you're going to drive the change, right? Then you go to the teachers, the students need to appreciate the relevance and the importance, right, of what you are doing, and then parents as well, because you need to maintain that home-school partnership. Reason being that, in actual fact, there needs to be some sort of, for lack of a better word, parents need to provide a home environment where it re-echoes or re-emphasizes the importance of the skills that you are teaching them in school.
Yeah, let me just example. The boy I'm talking about, the father came and I was telling the father, he came and then he saw the garage, he said, Daddy, buy the thing, I'll paint the garage. He was doubting. He insisted, I said, if you like, ask headmaster. So he bought the painting the garage for. So exactly what, yeah.
So you need that partnership with home. So that home will support. You know how if there's a disconnect, you come here, you do one thing, you go home, you do a different thing. Mostly contrary or direct opposite of what you do here. It doesn't become a part of you. Right? But if you're constantly doing the same thing, irrespective of the environment in which you find yourself, you can be sleeping and doing that particular thing. Because now that's who you are. So with these skills, home has to be supported. Home has to help the children to be involved in activities, right? Focus on their learning, right? Provide the right supportive environment, the skills, the rules, procedures that you have set in the school, right? Home should come up with similar rules. You sleep by 8 o'clock. And sometimes that is a rule. Don't forget, in as much as we need to give them that space to be able to be creative, human beings are social animals. And we need certain rules and parameters to be able to work within, right? So there are certain things that you need a home to reinforce in terms of rules, skills, attributes. If the children want to learn how to, maybe in school, you have to be supportive, you have to help each other, you have to share your material, right? You have to help people who are needy. And then at home, mom and dad are always like, oh, why should I be the one to be helping them? When I was suffering, where were they? Da, 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 da. Subconsciously, there is that fight or contrast between what you are discussing in school and what the home is discussing. You will not make any headway. So we need that partnership with home. They need to believe in the vision that you have set. That is why some schools actually have information sessions or engagement with parents about what their visions are, what their objectives are, some of the things that they want to do, any program that they want to come up with. They engage parents and say, we have this program plan, these are the advantages of having this program, this is how it's going to benefit the student, these are the skills they are going to develop, and the only support we need is just, if we need the students to come into school on weekends, stay longer, we need you to be able to allow them to come. You have a school team, right? And you train. And you need to train on weekends. And you need to train on weekends, that's Saturday, Sunday. If the parents don't allow the kids to come, how are you going to build a solid team? For that child who loves soccer to be the next Asamoah Gyan, to be the next Ronaldo.
Okay, and that strengthens the relationship between the teachers and the parents. You know. Because, I mean, my notion is that education of a child, it goes beyond
The classroom.
The classroom.
Yeah.
And we are all responsible. You know, even the parents, the community.
The community.
The community. Someone from the community.
And that is invested, but
you know,
community.
my brother spoke about, my colleague spoke about the basket weavers. You get someone, the girls, they come, they learn knitting, weaving, and all those things. You know, it doesn't entirely have to be the teachers. You know, because everyone, we are all responsible for the education of a child.
So there's certain, you don't even have to get a teacher to be in charge. As he's saying, approach a parent who you know is skilled in that area. Sometimes they are happy to do that.
Yes, very much.
And at low cost. What's the next point out there?
The use of meaningful and engaging instructional practice that involves students' ability to manage their own learning.
They talked about it at length in yesterday's presentation. I need no to explain this. Alice, next. So the spelling bee, the competitions, the debates, right? The conferences. Maybe we can share with you a few conferences that happen for high schoolers, and it's normally virtual, right? You take a look at it and see if you want your students to participate. There's one called the Tony Blair Institute, the Generation Z conference. So at a certain time, you have students from Asia, America, Europe, who've signed up, and then they go on the link, they put them in various groups, and they all discuss and talk about their country, right, and where they come from, to exchange and share culture. So you're here, you have some basic information about Mexico, right, about Italy, about America. You possibly have so you build that kind of pen pal relationship. Back then, we used to do that. You write pen pal, write a letter, you go to right? You take 2-3 months before you get a reply. This one, Yagani, life and color, face to face, right? You get to see each other, you interact, and all those things. Who knows the opportunities that will come as a result of that interaction, right? It's important. So let's continue to explore some of these things. Field trips, we've talked about that at length, right? You're already doing amazing. Now, what you have to do is, what more can we do? Just as my brother said about getting parents to come in. Partnerships, please pause. Partnership with institutions. Okay? And you do a lot of community support and engagement, and you have institutions that would want to help you to be able to continue to do that. You have students on scholarship. And in as much as this is a private school, you are more focused on changing the narrative in the villages, in the community, rather than lining your pocket. It's time to be corrected, right? Because other private schools, they will be charging arms and legs for a similar experience. So you go there and the whole place is all tiled, all AC, all fun, and they are collecting big money. I mean, we all love to do that. But you have subsidized your delivery because you want the average families to also have an opportunity to high quality education, to make a difference, right? Hence, if you go out there and partner with companies who have similar mindset, right? Education is the key. Someone jokingly said, and something has broken the padlock or whatever, right? It has always been the key. It helps bridge the gap and the disparity in our society. So please continue to explore partnership engagement that will help you continue to move from one level to the other. Alice.
the graphic organizer to fill out various areas that these settlers came from and which areas of Delaware that they settled, what resources they used, what attracted them to the land, and why they settled where they did.
When we previewed the passage previously, can somebody tell me what we previewed it for? What were we previewing this passage for? What did you do with partners when you worked with them? Okay, it was television, didn't have video games. Their life was different than our life today. What's your evidence to support it, Colin?
There would be no fire in school, and you would be punished and have to sit in the cold. We had to build fences. We had to borrow plows, farms, other families. We will sell corn.
Constantly focused on the screen throughout. You smiled throughout. Tell me what was going on in your mind. What did you observe?
Actually, the learners are not involved in activity. And secondly, I think it's about comprehension.
So it was English language?
I use pictures. It's about it's a story about this American and something. So they watch the picture first.
And then
give their perspective, their view. How do you see the picture? How can you describe the picture? And I saw all those things.
Yes. Anybody else?
Looking at how they go about it, I'm just looking at what we are doing. I'm just looking at what we are doing.
We are now coming there. You've already gone ahead. Go ahead. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
I'm just comparing. Out from just comparing.
Yeah.
Looking at our classroom. Looking at the class. What is going on in the class?
Please go ahead.
And
what's happening there? Tell me about it.
A difference. I see a difference. When I was communicating with you sometimes, said information overload. We are doing that. You can just take, open to me, so and so. Then, for instance, sometimes I do it when I was teaching the social studies, tell me, open to so and so page. Read from this and answer these questions. Just like that. But looking at this, you have seen the picture, you analyze whatever you have first. Then you read for a particular reason. Maybe you have read, she has read. Together, then we share ideas. The understanding is deeper.
You mentioned something similar yesterday.
Yeah,
asking a question,
exactly.
And then your man not knowing to wear the masking tape or to put it down and jump over. Deeper understanding.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Then they have to read again. They're looking for example, like when you are teaching English or whatever, talking about you are reading for the inferred meaning. Then there's specific information. So we see this through.
And she graduated it.
But over here, we just give them the passage, read it, answer these questions. All the questions are boxed together. Required information, inferred meaning, everything together. So the child just just get something for you, also mark it, that's all. And that's the end. The child does not get anything out of it.
Understanding. Deeper learning. Those critical thinking.
It doesn't happen in our classroom.
I noticed at some point I was asking myself, is it a social studies class? Is it a history class? Is it an English language class? The first time I watched that time. Cross-curricular, someone mentioned it in his or your delivery. He was teaching English, but he kept drawing the learner's attention to the fact that you've learned this in social studies. Then she talked about history, right? Try to draw a relationship between.
Over here, we call it a transfer of knowledge. That's what we have been saying.
It's the same thing.
That's what we say, transfer of knowledge.
But constantly, within every 2-3 minutes, she makes reference to another subject in her explanation, so that if you understood it during the social studies lesson, you should understand it as it's happening. There's a child who loves history. There's a child who loves social studies, geography. There's a child that loves English. So as they are discussing in English, that child gets it. she needs to get that child who loves social studies to also understand. There's someone who is all around, he loves everything. But again, you want to create a learning environment that meets the needs of the diverse learners that you have. So the transfer of knowledge, cross-curricular links and references, very important. And how can you be able to do this if you haven't engaged with the social studies teacher, with the history teacher, with the English teacher, right, about the topic you're going to teach, and find out what they've done already that relates to what you're going to do, so that you can make those references.
Sometimes in some of our subjects like science, there are some topics in English, the textbook, the English textbook, relating to
Science.
science. So you only want to talk about the writing system, energy, those things. You can find it in some of the
English textbooks.
So if you didn't go that way, maybe the review will become a little thing for you.
If I can add, this is an example, at least for at least year 3. So the English teacher will come and ask us, when are you doing graphs? Because in science we have to analyze information and put it in graph form, and then so that scientific inquiry. When you do an experiment, you have to do the experiment and get the results and graph graphs. I should ask, when are you doing graphs? So that we can shift, we can teach graphs around the same time, so that they are not learning differently. Or if you weren't doing before, that means we won't teach at all. What we'll do is we would rather go straight into it and do examples and answer questions instead of now teaching from scratch, because I will already do it. If she will do it before me, that means I won't teach the basics. She has taught the basics. We'll just revise and get into it. So that's communication. But if you did my graphs and math, yes sir, then that means I don't need to explain. Can somebody help us revise? And somebody will get that, oh, graph is this, it has this, it has that. This is how you do a bar graph. And then you move straight on. So that you achieve more. There's no duplication.
Once you finish the syllabus, you have that collaboration. So either you teach it at the same time, or one teaches and the other builds on the previous knowledge, or transfer of knowledge into moving to the next level for the other subject. And then that brings meaningful understanding, deeper learning, right? Critical thinking.
So what is saying now, over here, we only do that in social studies, R&D and English. We only do that. For example, it's substance abuse. There are passages about substance abuse. And that thing that you see in social studies, you see it in R&D. So that's what we do. But we don't even work with each other. We only do the class.
It's not integrated.
As your R&D chapter to substance abuse, yes sir, that's all. Then we box on. Instead of working with it, we don't do. So we just compare it.
On our side, what happens is if the group, the year group teachers, they meet, they talk. At the beginning of the term, these are all the topics that we'll be teaching for this term. There's that conversation. We are reopening on Monday. Before there's a document we've created, so everybody knows. Okay, ICT is doing this, math is doing this, English is doing that. So there's that document. And then once in a while during the term, we have that conversation going. Have you done this already? Are you going to treat it now? For some teachers, you will tell them we'll do maybe plans in the first 2 weeks, then you will change his mind and shift plans to the end. So you need to check. There's that constant communication needs to be there. And it doesn't by force have to be you always doing the cross-curricular between every single subject. It's not by force. Only when necessary.
No. I have a different thing.
The reason why I say that is that then you have teachers trying to force links.
It has to come naturally.
There are some subjects automatically there are links. In science, fine, you do math, sometimes you do even art.
It will come naturally.
It will come as the topics come up. You don't need to necessarily, today I'm teaching plants, and can I link math? Can I link geography?
If you start thinking towards that line, it makes your planning difficult. But if you let the person relax in his or her planning, right, and then the links come automatically, That makes it seamless. So, with his addition, two things come to mind, or even three, right? Collaboration amongst teachers, planning ahead of time, right? And the teacher being intentional in what? In drawing those links and references, making the delivery engaging. You notice that the teacher was not a teacher. She was a facilitator. And then allow the students to come and share. So those who like talking, will get an opportunity to talk. And they talk amongst themselves as well. Someone talked about group dynamics yesterday. So, as I was saying, we're going to come to the school context appraisal, right? These are the skills they need to develop. These are some of the things that needs to be done, okay, to be able to help them develop those skills. What are you doing currently? What more do you think you can do? You mentioned, you mentioned something that you weren't doing. What did you just say a couple of minutes ago?
About the comprehension.
Yes,
the passing, how
yes.
Yeah, we just let them read and then give them questions to answer.
Okay.
Without specifically getting them to get required specific information from you, or inferred meaning, or we don't do things like that.
Okay. So, I want to find a word or a phrase to describe that. Okay, maybe deeper learning and student collaboration, right? Or student engagement. So that's an issue you've identified as a result. And it's important that you do this school appraisal or review or evaluation regularly, right? So that's the issue. What needs to be done? One example he shared was there needs to be collaboration amongst teachers. Teachers. Planning in terms of lessons, right? Transfer of knowledge, I'm going to use your terminology. Put it, making it activity based and group. Who is involved in carrying out these actions? Teachers, heads, and assistant heads. Timelines. The teacher collaboration and planning, when should it be happening? It should be happening, maybe you mentioned prior to the start of the term. You do the plans and everything. So when does the year, maybe the year or the term, so the year starts in, let's say, September. Or the term is going to start in, let's say, April. So April 2022. As assistant head or head, when do you engage them? When do you do observations to make sure, or check their planning document to make sure all these are in order? You put the timelines. When do you do class observation to see if they are making reference to previous knowledge, they are doing the activity-based groupings and everything? Is it going to be regular walking, or is it going to be planned observation and all those things? At what time will it be? What resources will you need? I'm not done. Please move to the next slide for me. What do you see? Do you see the table?
I'm on the table.
And the next slide. You see the table? What's the next column? Resources. Monitored by who should be monitoring? So if it's the assistant head doing something here, who should be monitoring? If it's the teacher doing something, who should be monitoring? This is to help you track and make sure everybody has a responsibility. So if the teacher is doing it, assistant head is monitoring. If the assistant head is the one doing it, the head is monitoring. If it's the head that's doing it, the CEO is monitoring. Because we all appreciate that. We need that monitoring, we need that support, we need that prompt and reminders to be able to continue to do the things that need to be done. Success criteria. How would you know that these things that you said needs to be done to be able to resolve the problem, the issue, is being done? Children are engaged. The results are getting better. Internal assessment, results analysis is now becoming positively skewed rather than being negatively skewed. So you put all those success criteria there. So you're formalizing the process. Immediately you formalize it, it becomes what? A practice. It becomes embedded. It becomes a way of life. So you really get to a time, teachers will not see it as being, at the beginning, they will see it as being stressful going through this. Immediately, it's giving them the results. Like, but you didn't come to my class. I did some amazing, you know how you engage the children, they get the point, you put all the questions and then you, the teacher, you're like, Charity, you killed it.
Yes.
So when you don't show up for that teacher's observation that very day, you're in trouble. Today that the children were all controlled, they were quiet, paying attention, you didn't come. The day I'm struggling, that's when you show up. You get it? Any questions? Any comments? So I'm gonna, as a homework, which you always give your kids, I'm going to ask each of you in your own area, I mean, you the head, I'm sure yours will be overridden, as an assistant head of primary, as an assistant, no, primary, preschool, yeah, I knew you missed it. As assistant head of primary, what are some of the things you think you would want to change, right, or improve on, to make sure your students develop these critical thinking skills? Is it in terms of classroom? Is it in terms of how you manage your teachers or engage with your teachers, right? Is it in terms of teaching strategies? So you put it there. What specific actions should you do? Who should be involved? Who should monitor? By what time do you want to see that that thing has been improved? Put the timelines, right? How would you know that it's been improved? 2 things on that action, on a sample action document, and share with your head. And then, as you work on it, you go to your head and then tell your head, this is how far I've come. I've done this, I've done that. This is still in progress. I'm seeing few changes, I'm seeing improvement, right? Can you come in and take a look as well and let me know what you think? So you do that. Preschool as well, you do. In your area as being in charge of PD, right? You're the one who does a lot of training or support training and all those things, maybe even in science. What have you observed? What skill set do you think that when the teachers are exposed to, it will help them to be able to provide even more engaging lessons? Something similar to what you just watched for the students. So, engaging lessons, or providing teachers with opportunities to be exposed or know how to provide engaging lessons. What should be the action? YouTube videos, links, materials, Who should be involved? You find them, give it to the teachers, or get approval from the headmaster, give it to the teachers. Timelines. When should you do it? Okay, I need to have them do this because I want, by the time we come back for next academic year, everybody should be solid. What resources will you need? You need internet. Okay, can I get the password to the Wi-Fi so that I can be able to download things? I need to print them, right? Please, can you print this for this group of teachers? It doesn't have to be all teachers. If it's something that has to do with secondary school, it's the high school, JHS teachers only. If it's preschool teachers only. You do all that, and then you track. Headmaster there, he gets it. Same arrangement. The teachers, the whole school, right? Marketing strategy, maybe fee collection. the debtors are about 40%. You want to reduce it to 10%. What are some of the strategies that you can put in place? What are the timelines? And then in about a month or two, we will check in with you and see how far. We love it?
Yeah.
Questions, please. What don't you understand? What more do you want to get clarity on? You get the slides. You definitely get the slides.
I think I introduced the preschool and then lower primary, which is using videos, and also I downloaded the videos because of videos, got pen drives for them. I said we can be using my projector when it was okay.
Yeah.
Even we have the TV with the deck we can be using.
Okay.
The pen drives are dead. The TV is there, everything is dead now. If I were to know this and do it this way, then know that okay, you have to be monitoring, give timelines. Okay, maybe every Friday you must make sure you use the videos, or Friday and Monday, this class, if we to do this, it should have been effective. How I just give it to them.
So now you need to. So another action is get those resources. What do you need? You need money. When can you get the money to buy them? Okay, when you get it, who will be in charge? Right? Everybody needs they put in a requisition. So you have a book, a logbook. Could you keep for it for social studies at this time? Retain it at this time. Still in good condition. It's not necessarily to show that when it's sports, you say, okay, you sport it, so go ahead and fix it. I mean, I don't know what your school procedures, rules are, but possibly that's not to check, but that's to know who uses it at what time, because you want them to use it. So sometimes you look at the logbook and Kwame the whole term, you know, he hasn't used. Are you kidding me? What have you been doing? You understand? So something like that. My work is done. Any questions? Thank you so much for the attention and the presence. Fully appreciate it. I hope we've all learned something. I definitely am taking something away. I hope you're taking something away as well.
Immediately when you get here, immediately when you're here, then you'll be sitting like, you've done it. Well done. That's about 1 hour, 30 minutes of learning, of PD that you've done on your own, self-driven, initiated PD. You should be proud of yourself. You should be proud of yourself. And you should be excited of what you're going to do in your classroom next. Because whatever that we do, whatever that we learn, we're going to apply it. We're going to improve. And looked at a whole lot of things, man. Mr. Ayerson, Stanley, my friend, he looked at a whole lot of things. Reinvention of the skills, building the criteria to just checking on yourself as a school. He looked at quite a lot of things. My question for you is, what stood out for you in this video? Let me know down there, and thank you so much. Continue your PD.